All right, welcome back to Modern Mondays here at Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon. I'm Travis Cooper, hanging out with,
Ian Lunger.
and we're both from Portland Paper, and we're watching an interesting matchup here. We got some guild spells that are going to be happening, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have a Mizzet, 5-color Mizzet deck, which is just kind of like it's honestly like the evolution of Jund or something, like Dragon Jund or something, and then some sort of Spirits brew that we are not sure. We're thinking it's maybe Azorius, but we'll see.
Yeah, I've seen this Niv Mizzet deck do some really cool stuff, and then I've seen it draw like, 10 cards and still lose. So, playing a lot of singletons, they usually do interesting things. Some of them are powerful. But yeah, you're always in for a good time when you're watching this deck because you don't exactly know what spells your opponent is going to be casting.
Yeah, they can play like such a huge myriad of spells, and obviously are trying to hit a lot of the different guilds. Um, so you'll see all sorts of crazy one-ofs, like Unmoored Ego, like just the most random smattering of multicolored spells.
In guild combinations.
Yeah. And the deck does have kind of a similar issue to Jund at times, where sometimes you can just see the wrong half of your deck. So there are plenty of removal spells in this deck, but if Brandon sees, for example, his Unmoored Egos and a bunch of other stuff in this matchup against a somewhat aggressive-looking Spirits deck, he's probably going to get run over pretty quickly.
Yeah,
But if he finds the Supreme Verdicts, then maybe he'll be having a good time.
or the deafening clarions or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. Yeah, quite a wide range of possible options.
Yeah, I remember earlier Chad asked if there was any other control decks out there, and I don't know, maybe we would consider five color Niv somewhat of a control deck.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I put it in the Jun category, but maybe a little slower and a little grindier. So, um, yeah, I guess it's control.
And usually these Divisit decks that's one of the cards they're playing up to 3 copies of. It's Lightning Helix, just because it's really great removal against aggressive strategies. It can kind of get you back in the game, and also it's a 2-color spell.
Yeah, well, yeah, Knight Rider. Not only is the mana tricky, but they're playing a number of basics. It is an Astrolabe deck. You can see we're playing Prismatic Vista, so you can get some really, really awkward hands with this deck.
Nothing that a couple Astrolabes can't fix. So.
It's true. But, if people wise up and start to counter and or destroy the Astrolabes, it will be interesting to see. Sometimes the deck really can just get gummed up.
All right, looks like Brandon is going to fetch for a basic swamp to Assassin's Trophy.
Or no, I'm a sack one for the. Oh, you're sacking both of them. Gotcha. I'm sorry. That's right.
And Spell Queller, always kind of a bit of a precarious play here, especially when it's covering up a removal spell. But, that's why you play the card, and usually Spell Queller followed by a Spell Queller is pretty backbreaking.
Yeah, and in the Spirits deck, Spell Queller's especially scary, especially with something like a Violon too. If you decide to fire something out at it, you're risking playing into a Rattle Chains or something like that and getting blown out pretty hard.
Well, Knight Rider, I would say at least one of each.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, they like to run one of, so if you're ever unsure of a number of cards, it's like a one of, or, in the case of Lightning Helix, like maybe a three
I
of.
think Lightning Helix is the only card that's not Niv Mizzet or Bring to Light that is more than a 2 of.
It's just good deck building. And in this case, I think it actually is good deck building.
I feel like the Niv Mizzet list is like if you take the spells on them, it's usually what my sideboards look like.
Nuglo, you made it to meddling mage status. Congrats. Welcome. Okay. So.
Correct. So as upon my cast, I won't have to pay the 1. Yep. This will die.
Oh, hold on a second. I'm gonna pause the players.
So we're.
Oh.
It goes on the stack. It goes on the stack.
Oh.
So you have to cast it. And then
But I can
yeah,
cast
you can
it.
cast it.
Gotcha.
So I had a little confusion with the Unsettled Mariner.
You can cast it without playing the mana cost. Yep.
So
Without paying it, so you're targeting
we can cast it. Hold up, but doesn't it get countered by the Mariner here?
Brandon paid the 1 with the.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, that's a little bit complicated there, and we've been able to set up the booth where we're like right by the players, so it's a little bit easier for us to step out, and if there's a real egregious gameplay error or GRV, as some would say, we can just pop out there and correct them.
I know, right? What the heck? It's all good. At least you're with me, because I was like, my first time too, so my turn, right?
Yeah.
Here.
And yeah, it's always nice to have regulars hanging out in chat. So if folks are new here, welcome. And if you're hanging out watching, feel free to just shout out with any questions, comments, suggestions, requests.
So Mariner rumbles in for 3, takes Brandon down to 21.
What kind of creature is that, Mariner?
It is a shapeshifter, so it is every kind of creature.
It's a spirit.
Right. Oh, yeah, also that. So I hope Brandon's just debating which land to play, because this Niv Mizzet deck is a mana-hungry deck.
Opponent sack a creature and gain 4 life.
So choose sack creature, each opponent, and then gain 4 life.
Yeah.
So, notably, Kaya's Guile does get around the Unsettled Mariner tax.
Yeah, it's one of those each opponent spells, which doesn't target a player. So we're gonna sack a creature, and then Brandon's gonna gain 4 life here.
Both of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna sack here, and then you gain 4, going 25.
25.
Okay. My turn.
So tough sledding for Matthew. Definitely. Again, this Niv Mizzet deck does have a lot of value. Notably, Brandon did miss his land drop, and the deck doesn't really turn on until it gets to 5 mana. So, Brandon's going to be a little bit stunted until he can make it to 5. However, if he's able to continue to manage the board, he'll probably be fine.
Kogan's Command, Artifact.
Wow.
An
It's a pretty solid play.
It's a twofer.
Yeah. Would you destroy the vial here, or would you go for the discard mode on Matthew?
I would think I would destroy the vial for sure. It seems like a solid line of play. Like Matthew's spells in hand might be like reactive, might not. They're unknowns. He had a couple, so that Matthew gets to make a choice. If you destroy the vial, like Matthew saw. He played the vial, and you take away Matthew having a choice. So I'm usually a fan of not having my opponents be able to make choices if possible. But yeah, I could see an argument either way, but I do like the play of destroying the vial, because then you know what the board's like, and you have to play around less if the game goes later. And Brandon really, really getting pinched on lands here.
Combat. 22. 21.
21.
It does look like Matthew has Not a whole lot of action on his side either. Just coming in for 2. Brandon's still above 20 life here.
Yeah, I wonder if we're sitting on some spell callers or what, the like rattle chains. What are we?
We're having fun on camera.
It's Deputy of Detention, I believe. We have 2 Deputy of Detentions in hand for Matthew, which is not particularly effective when your opponent doesn't have anything worth detending. Detentioning, taking to detention. And also sending Niv Mizzet to detention is kind of a dangerous thing as well.
Oh, right, going down to 18 there.
Still beating me.
Got land number 4.
You haven't even played a creature and you're still beating me. That's how bad that is. He'll come sooner or later.
That's what you call a mana base.
Yeah, yeah. That's all 5 colors right there. Okay. Vraska seems solid here. Imagine we're going to see a... This is, I believe, Vraska Golgari Queen.
Right, Brandon's graveyard gets exiled.
It's not... Yeah, Deputy does deal with Vraska, but it's feels pretty bad if the Deputy gets taken off the board. I might have just left the Vraska on the battlefield. But that also seems pretty bad.
It all seems, yeah. Deputy is really not great when you're playing against a deck that is going to have a lot of varied removal spells.
Yeah. Maybe you just got to Hail Mary, Ghost Quarter a couple lands and hope that you run Brandon out of basics. Oof. This is really, really rough here. We're going to see Teferi bouncing that Deputy of Detention, freeing up Vraska, which will come in with full loyalty and then be able to potentially tick up on probably nothing. Okay, interesting. Brandon choosing not to bounce with Teferi. Are you surprised by that?
I am, because I kind of like bouncing with Teferi, because if you do and then Matthew plays another Deputy of Detention, then you can minus, play your... You're going to get the Vraska back, so then Matthew's going to have to choose between Vraska or Teferi. If he picks Teferi, you can minus Vraska, and it gets to be like, the House of Cards.
He has no right choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, again, the Deputies taking the Planeswalkers at 1 loyalty is just not a feel good.
And the Deputies are like not a super threatening clock here.
Okay, we've got 5 mana and we have the pillar here, so if there is a Niv Mizzet or a Bring to Light in hand, this is where the 5-color Niv deck really puts down the hammer.
Are they playing any cards named Hammer? I don't think so.
No.
No hammers in the deck.
That's true. Are there any playable hammers? There used to be... Hammer of Bogarden used to be like a really playable card in red decks.
Well, there's a new equipment, right? That like...
Oh, yeah.
It looks like an enormous hammer.
Yeah. What is Batterskull? Is it a hammer?
No, Batterskull's not a hammer. It's a big, ugly looking... Probably a skeleton, maybe?
And that you just wear it?
I think you wear it.
Oh. Alright, well, House of Cards might be falling apart as we speak. Okay. We're gonna see the chain we just talked about. Teferi's gonna go ahead and tick down to bounce the other Deputy. Vraska's gonna come back and probably kill the Mariner, although I believe Brandon will have to pay 1 to target because of the Unsettled Mariner. Is it spells and
It
abilities?
is
for
spells
Brandon?
and abilities.
Target that, pay one.
And Brandon does pay.
Bounces to my hand.
It's such a feel bad. It's such a feel bad.
You get to draw a card, is that right?
No, I want to skip counters. I can choose to draw if I want. If I want to sacrifice something. Minus her again.
On the Teferi, you get to draw.
Oh yeah.
And then you do what?
And then I'm gonna destroy your Mariner.
Oh, Brandon forgot the draw effect off to Fairy, which I could kind of see because you're probably so excited that everything goes away.
Sometimes when you have so much value, you forget some of your value. Travis, I'm honestly, if I'm in Matthew's situation, I'm firing off these Ghost Quarters now. He's at 5 mana. He's playing Spirits. Like, you're probably not in this game, but if you could somehow, like, waste Brandon off of basics and just hope that he doesn't have all 5 colors of basics.
So Knight Rider Pillar isn't actually supposed to be able to pay for that. We're at a regular REL here, and basically Brandon would have been able to use Pillar to cast a trophy, and just the players didn't catch that one. If they called a judge, the fix would be that like Brandon would have had to tap his mana differently, but it would have effectively resulted in the same situation right now.
Right.
And also, yeah, you're right. You can't miss the draw if you bounce the thing because that's just maintaining a game state here. So Matthew, just these deputies have had quite the wild ride.
They've been like the most anti-value cards in this situation. Just you see Thought Erasure thrown out by Brandon. Standard All-Star. Thought Erasure.
It's kind of a cool matchup to get to see because there's a lot of cards that people that maybe play a fair amount of Modern, but not a lot of Standard might not be super familiar with. What do you think about that flavor, Ian?
I just feel so bad for Matthew in this match. It's just like this continual recurring of planeswalkers and the just massive amount of land drops on the battlefield and the power level of what's going on this game is just insane.
Yeah, Brandon says he neglects to sacrifice a permanent here. So.
I think I would just get rid of a land. I mean, Brandon's got all 5 of his colors. Like, just get rid of the Heath to draw and get some life.
Well, whenever you actually draw a Mizzet, you're going to want all your lands to cast all your cool spells.
It's fair. You got really cool spells.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Matthew getting back in here.
Assassin Trophy came in handy. I was like, oh, I can't even pay 1 to draw next card. Then Assassin Trophy was like, wait a minute.
So Matthew back on the board. Wow, he's counting his mana on speed. I don't know what he's got in hand that you could possibly be counting your mana for.
Well, he can draw cards.
Oh.
There's a little dude out there. If chat wants to help us out and remind us what this relatively new card is called that Matthew has on the battlefield.
Kansas, you are correct. He would not be able to flash that in because of to 3 fairy.
Yeah,
we're not gonna try and rewind it at this point. We're just gonna let the players.
Things are a little bit messy.
Yeah.
Basically, it would be me standing beside the table out there and making sure game state is correct. So, yeah, it's a little too late to rewind that, but it is interesting with all these new planeswalkers with static abilities like Narset and Teferi. it's pretty easy to miss stuff. Like I've definitely
Yeah.
had an Narset out and had my opponent like ponder, and I totally just forgot that they couldn't draw cards and they weren't cheating. They forgot too. So, yeah.
Hey, Matthew. Yeah, if there's... Let me check here.
Played a lottery. Yeah, go for it. We're gonna do all same guilds. Yeah. All guilds. The guild, and the guild, and the guild, and the guild, and the guild.
That's worse.
Guild, guild. That's 5 color. I can't take it. He's going to bottom.
Oh, that's good.
Shoot
Oh,
between the Azorius.
you should put on the other headphones, Ian.
Yeah.
Oh, we got it. Okay, good. We had a little bit of audio glitches there. Okay, well, while we were dealing with some audio issues, we had uh, we had a Mizzet resolve, and Brandon has a giant hand. Got a verdict, got a K command hanging out. Got another helix, a couple other leftovers. And a Moreland Haunt activation. Got a 1/1 Spirit that is turned into a 2/2 with that Supreme Phantom, so it's going to be perhaps battling the Mizzet in turns if we can develop some more lords. Yeah, I can't. I don't know the life totals or anything at this point.
Sorry, chat. That should have fixed our problem.
All right, yeah, we got a little bit sidetracked there, fixing some technical difficulties with the audio, but we are back now, and a little bit lost what the life totals were. I'm sure you all have been paying attention to the game. One player has a lot more permanents than the other player does on the battlefield, and a lot more cards in their hand. But Matthew continuing to keep the grind going, making a spirit.
Yeah, well, it looks like things have happened since
That was a scoop with just a
yeah.
land and an Aether Vial left. Facing down 3 planeswalkers and giant flying creature plus a ton of cards in hand.
Feels like Matthew has to get on the board a little bit earlier here and maybe not draw as many mopey cards like Deputy of Detention in this matchup. He really needs to get the pressure down quickly.
Yeah, Matthew and chat, we actually got to see that deck in round 1, and it looked pretty good. We did have a discussion a little bit about in the story, Drown the Lock. Those are like maybes for me, but I think Mystic Sanctuary is going to be a card that we're going to keep seeing in Modern, maybe Legacy, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Matthew, take a look at round 1. It was Quentin playing the Grixis list, and he played pretty tight lines, so definitely worth a watch.
I always think it's funny when Mizzet goes to sideboard.
Yeah. So, as you could probably guess, the Niv Mizzet sideboard is full of a bunch of multicolored cards.
What do we got? Anything stand out?
Well, there is another copy of Niv Mizzet in the sideboard, so I imagine we probably are playing 3 and could go up to 4.
Yeah, Flying Blocker seems pretty good against spirits.
Deafening Clarion is also available in the sideboard, which seems like a good card here. Some other interesting ones. Hostage Taker is available. That's a card that I guess I could see.
Be interesting to Hostage Taker a Deputy of Detention.
Yeah, although it feels like, again, as a Jund style deck, I think Brandon's deck lines up fairly well against what Matthew's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd bring the card in, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think just the Deafening Clarion.
It does kind of blow my mind a little bit as someone that has played a lot of 3-color control decks and making decisions to speculatively fetch for different lands, when to shock, thinking you'll cut yourself off of playing certain cards, open yourself up to playing certain top decks, and spending a lot of energy and thought into that decision-making process. This Niv Mizzet deck, if you don't have Astrolab out, that would hurt my brain.
It's pretty awkward, but if you can pick up a pillar, you can manage to chain stuff together pretty well, it seems like. I've actually seen the deck have mana problems, like, not that many games. I kind of was honestly expecting that I would see it have mana problems more often.
Oh, yeah, chat says Battle of the Mustard Sleeve decks. As someone who was recently talking about deck colors, because I manage a game store, one of those might be called mustard. The other one's probably called light yellow. But yeah, some slight differences there. I said I'd pull up the invoice. I'm gonna pull up that invoice here with the names of different
you
deck sleeve colors.
You gotta follow through on your promise. Yeah, I'm a big fan of yellow sleeves. Yellow, pink, lavender, great colors. Have you gotten used to the London Mulligan rule yet, Travis? We've had it for a while at this point.
I don't feel like I'm cheating anymore when I mulligan. It does seem great. I'm a big fan, and I would say I'm used to it at this point.
I luckily still have not had any disputes with opponents about number of times they've mulliganed. That said, I do keep a die counter for both players during mulligans, just to make sure that that it's perfectly clear the number of times mulligans have happened.
That is probably a confusing thing, and also the how you resolve a mulligan when do you put the card on the bottom is not the most intuitive thing, and a lot of people don't know how that works. What do we got there? I don't know what that card is.
It searches up a forest or plains. Chat help.
Okay, here we go. Some deck sleeve colors. Pacific.
Ooh.
Pumpkin. Lime. Royal. Those are all Eclipse sleeve colors.
Royal. So Royal's got to be blue, right? Or purple?
That's confusing because the invoice just says Pacific. Like, what is that, blue or is that Pacific green? I have no idea.
There we go. Knight Rider helping us out.
And we get a Lord.
Little Supreme Phantasm jumping out there.
So not the fastest start for Spirits. Didn't have the Aether Vial. Now time is going to be a big factor here if Matthew's able to eke this, eke a win out. And Brandon maybe thinking about land sequencing here.
Yeah, that was an extremely long game one.
16? Yep. Yeah.
I think if I were Matthew, I might have considered conceding a little bit earlier there, save some time.
Yeah, usually here on Modern Mondays we're able to get a couple matches in each round, or at least one full match in the end of another one. But we had a match go to time last round, and it looks like this is maybe going to go to time here too.
K-Ponce, how you doing, bud?
Yeah, I saw was hanging out. Kevin did a late stream the other night, and I was watching him play some Mardu Shadow, which was pretty cool.
Solid.
The Pillar, that was a card that went from not being very much money at all to being like $16 overnight.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's kind of funny that, yeah, that card's worth a lot, and if Mizzet's still like $1.25.
Yeah, like invest in real estate. Gonna keep saying it.
K-Ponce, we've had a mixed bag of games tonight. Had some cool decks on stream. Haven't had too many particularly close matches so far this evening.
They've all been pretty long though.
Yeah. Had an interesting Astral Drift deck on previously. Astral Drift against an Azorius Stoneblade matchup that was definitely a slog. Had some pretty cool lines in that game.
And we did get to see the Mystic Sanctuary Cryptic Command loop, which I thought was sweet. But one player thought it was so not sweet that they brought in what was his spell? Stain the Mind? Stain the Mind.
Stain the Mind. to just take Cryptic Command out of their opponent's deck, which, does prevent the loop.
But we got some magic happening now.
Yeah. That was your
And
step, right?
Brandon really doesn't like
Casting anything in your step?
Aether Vials.
No, yeah, he does not want to let Matthew play an instant speed at all.
It is funny when I play a control deck against an Aether Vial deck. You just sort of switch how your game play and your sequencing once the Aether Vial's out there. But yeah, it seems like Brandon just doesn't want to have to care about it.
There's the red.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to see Matthew accelerate into something pretty quickly, as playing a bunch of one. Somehow Matthews just played a bunch of 1/3s both games.
Yeah, a lot of 1-power creatures.
I don't think that's gonna get it done against this Niv deck with a grip full of cards.
Astrolabe?
There's Astrolabe.
You get to draw a card, right? Yep.
Well, fixing online, although I do think Brandon's mana was pretty good before even playing the Astrolabe.
Kaya?
We'll see Baby Kaya. Eats a Queller. I guess gets eaten by a Queller.
Hester?
That's good. We're coming in for 4 damage this turn on Matthew's side, at least.
Yeah, and the Spell Queller is out of Bolt or Helix range.
Matthew is also holding up a Rattle Chains. So we have both Akira and a Rattle Chains on board. This is this is looking to be a pretty solid game plan for Matthew this round. I like Matthew's board.
Kind of weak to a Deafening Clarion, but with that Rattle Chains, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, a board sweeper would be rough. But any sort of targeted removal is not going to get through here. Unless Brandon can put together, I think he's got to put together 3 spells. Yeah, I'd say we're almost at sweeper or bust here. Although a Niv Mizzet is a great blocker against this board. Brandon's gonna fetch to 8. Probably grabbing a basic here. I think his mana base is pretty solid at this point. Pretty safe to grab a basic rather than a shock here, and probably still have access to all the colors he needs.
So you're saying you like that forest?
Yeah, I think that forest is sweet. Of the new Snowlands, I think it's my favorite art of them. I'm not a big fan of the other ones, but I think that one's sweet. So this should trigger the Kira.
Let's count through this, right?
So what's your follow-up here, Brandon?
Gotcha. My bad.
It's okay.
Okay, see the Teferi here.
You're gonna have to target the Kira again.
Guess I'll bounce skull.
Oh.
Skull.
Oh.
The target, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna flash in. Oh, sorry.
Travis he's had enough. He's now going to step in.
Oh, gotcha. Got it.
It is probably going to result in the same thing here. The Teferi is probably going to minus on the Kira. Still going to result in the rattle chains flashing in. Okay, I guess we're not targeting
We'll do
anything.
it next game.
Okay.
Okay, we're going next game.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a third match here.
I think that was enough to get you. Yeah, Kira's hard to deal with.
All right, had to interrupt a little bit there because we were at a real pivotal point in the game. But basically how Kira works is each of your creatures gains the ability. The first time it's targeted by a spell or ability each turn. You counter that spell or ability. And so you each one is protected by its own little glass bubble. And you can't burst one bubble and then target something else because it'll still be countered.
That's a nice way to describe it.
Well, they're in glass bubbles.
Yeah, it's represented by the artwork. Let's actually take a look at Kira.
There's just so many decks out there, and I miss a lot of the triggers and what can do what. Like, I almost have to die to every deck just to learn how to play.
Especially when you play like EDH too, like a lot, where it's just like you don't even know what like other cards are doing. You're just like trusting people. Like, hey, does that work? You know.
I like standard the most only because then the meta is so much smaller and I know what every card does. Where in here it's like there's so many things that go with so many other
Yeah,
things.
Kira was when
all right,
I don't know, some years ago when Merfolk was actually the best Aether Vial deck. That was always the trump card against control or removal strategies.
It's such sick art. Look at those little they look like penguin.
Keep this hand.
Death penguins?
I don't even know.
Oh, like the little thing?
Yeah, the little baby things in the bubble.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the giant thing was a creature, but I guess
it is like kind of. It has little webbed feet.
I'm gonna go fetch a green.
Kamigawa had the trippiest art.
Pass turn.
That block was just crazy.
You're gonna go get the green and then go get this at the same time. Okay, I'll wait till you get.
Each spell is an intricate tapestry, and Kira is a great unraveler.
Like normally I would just go take my
Mind
turn right
blown.
now, but with the camera and everything, I'll just wait until it's all done.
What a card.
Yeah.
Kamigawa had very
So
few
you're getting
playable
your green for
cards
that and
besides
what's into this?
Umezawa's
Oh,
Chite.
no, no, yeah,
But
I'll get my green
you
for
know,
that, sorry.
Kira's in there.
Yeah, green
I think
for
it is
this
still
and
also
then,
a very
this is my
expensive,
hand.
Yep.
like
And then the
sealed
green for-
product for
Yep.
some reason.
It was kind of a fun draft format, I guess.
Actually, that was when I was on a
perfect.
Magic break, so I didn't get to
And
play
my turn.
Kamigawa draft.
Oh,
Speaking of, we had Kira just show up in Matthew's hand.
Plains. Giver.
Okay.
Fast turn.
So Matthew playing a lot of non-spirits, it seems, in this deck. Got a Giver of Ruins, had the Deputy. It's been
Yeah.
interesting to see the spirits and humans deck all play some number of non-human, non-spirits.
Blooded Strand. Sack it. You gotta go get. 19. I'm just gonna get an island.
Right, Matthew fetching for basic island.
Not that my life total matters, because if you kill me, it's gonna be an overrun of craziness. It's gonna just kick the crap out of me. So.
And what are we gonna play?
Yeah.
Well, we got the Unsettled Mariner, so have a fair amount of we got some protection built up here. So if we chain a couple like lords or flying beaters together, you could maybe take the game in 3.5 minutes.
Doesn't that cost 3 mana?
And it does cost 3 mana.
There we go. Matt catches it.
And you will be able to give the Mariner Pro red if you want to save it. Yep, or not.
All right.
So Deafening Clarion is kind of like a Anger of the Gods or Pyroclasm type effect that you can prevent that damage if you give it Pro the color, unlike a Destroy effect like Wrath of God or Supreme Verdict. So heads up play would have probably been to give your Mariner Pro red or white.
And Matthew hitting a little bit of mana troubles here, sitting on the Kiras, and does not have the double blue to cast them. Looks like we're gonna shock here.
Yeah,
17.
Multiple Kiras on your opponent is, depending on targeted removal, can be pretty backbreaking if you play one and your opponent's like, well, I guess I'm going to burn 2 removal spells and getting rid of it, and then you follow it up with the second one.
Yes. Can we sack the Wanderer to counter that, or is it only instant or sorcery on the Wanderer?
Oh, well, it's there. That's a good point. I think it's Wanderer is a negate type effect, so.
So then we should have just countered that.
Well, we should make sure with a little card fetcher, but as someone, I don't play Spheres, I've played against it a lot.
Okay, yeah, it's just instant or sorcery.
Just instant or sorceries?
Yep.
Right.
Looks like we're at turn 0 here. It'll be pretty tough to see anybody come up with the win here. What do you think of the inclusion of Vraska Golgari Queen in this deck? It seems like Brandon's does not really like to sacrifice many permanents, so it's kind of like, I mean, it's an expensive abrupt decay with the potential to be more abrupt decays.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you might end up with some extra Astrolabs just hanging out there in a way to sort of cash those in for card advantage.
Okay. Matthew creatively figuring out a way to get himself 2 blue here.
Don't really see either of these decks really finishing it off in the amount of turns left, because Brandon's only going to get 2 turns. Brandon's going to be on turn 2 and 4. I could maybe see if Brandon had 3 turns away to perhaps get a win. But I think you're going to have a turn where you cast like a Niv or something else big, and then a turn with removal and a big attack.
Right. All right, we see Kira back again.
And are we going to do anything else?
Interesting. No attack with the Supreme Phantom. What are the face down cards to Brandon's right?
That might be like like sideboard cards, perhaps.
Okay. Looks like Brandon's pondering what to do here. Again, we're going to have to see some significant damage come through if either player is going to have a chance to win this one. This is turn 3, correct?
We're in turn 2.
Oh, we are.
Yep.
Okay.
Brandon was 0, Matthew's 1, Brandon's 2. Matthew's going to get 3 and 5.
We're coming in with the Huntmaster. I believe Kira's a 3/3.
Yeah. Some tricks might be up the sleeve. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe we're threatening 2 removal spells against this Supreme Phantom. Although I think if I'm Matthew, I mean, if you've got any sort of, I guess you can't have anything that costs blue, so you can't bluff a Rattle Chains here. So Brandon would have to have 2 removal spells, but even with 2 removal spells, you just trade. I think I tender a block on both. Okay, that gets countered. So Dreadbore finishes off Kira. And Matthew, of course, picks up the island afterwards. I think we have another Kira. Second Kira.
Yeah, neither of these decks having like really aggressive starts, and especially this like Spirits deck, which sometimes you can do things like Wanderer into Supreme Phantom into Drogskull Captain, or like play a Geist, and really get some damage in there. It's had pretty mopey draws on like a scale of aggressiveness.
Yeah, it does feel like Matthew's playing maybe a little bit more of a passive version. I'm a little surprised that Matthew's not blocking the Huntmaster. I think if you have a counterspell, you should probably use it here. If you're this is surprising, but I guess Brandon is ensuring that we will have a draw. Seems like both players playing for a draw here, I guess.
Artist.
All right. And we get another draw here at the feature match area.
that's a lot of draws tonight.
Yeah, we've had 2 for 3 on draws.